the Sa Huynh jar burials, decoding the thousand-year mystery of seafaring souls. Introduction: a call from the sand dunes. Along the coastal strip of central Vietnam, where white sand dunes meet the deep blue ocean, a great mystery lay buried for more than 2 millennia. This is the story of a culture that left behind no temples or citadels, no written texts to record its own history. The only legacy they passed down to posterity lies deep beneath the coastal sands. They are giant ceramic jars. This is the story of the Sa Huynh culture. These jars were not ordinary vessels. They were tombs, gateways that lead us into the spiritual world, into the incredibly rich inner life of a people who lived over 2,000 years ago. Let us open the lids of these jars of time together to listen to the story that the Sa Huynh people tell. Chapter 1. The historical phases, the rise and transformation of a culture. The Sa Huynh culture was not a static entity. It was a cultural current that flowed for more than 1,000 years, which archaeologists have divided into 3 main phases, each with its own distinct technical and spiritual characteristics. The early phase, from circa 1000 to 500 BCE. This was the formative period, when the first Sa Huynh communities began to settle along coastal areas and river mouths. Their footprint during this stage is still quite faint. Their pottery was simple, mostly utilitarian items. The custom of jar burial had appeared, but was not yet widespread. Tools were still primarily made of stone and bone. This was the dawn of a culture. The middle phase, from circa 500 BCE to the Common Era. This was the most brilliant period of development, the classic stage of the Sa Huynh culture. The population boomed and villages expanded. The technique of pottery making reached its peak with large, intricately decorated jars. Notably, this was the era of the Iron Age Revolution, as the Sa Huynh people became masters of iron forging, producing countless agricultural tools, weapons, and ornaments. It was during this phase that their maritime trade network expanded most powerfully, connecting them to the outside world. The late phase, from the Common Era to the 2nd century CE, this was a period of transition and decline. Archaeological sites show evidence of interaction and possibly conflict with other cultural groups, especially the precursors to the Champa kingdom. Some types of pottery and grave goods show changes. Eventually, the Sa Huynh culture gradually faded from the historical record, perhaps not through extinction, but through an absorption and transformation into a new culture that would succeed them. Chapter 2. The Jar Burial, Spiritual Architecture Through the Ages. The custom of jar burial is the most outstanding feature, the common thread running through the history of the Sa Huynh people. However, its methods and meanings also evolved over time. While simple in the early period, by the middle phase, it had become a highly complex system of spiritual architecture. The ceramic jars were elaborately crafted, large in size, with thick walls and fired at high temperatures. They were not just objects, they were miniature architectural works. Archaeologists have classified many different burial forms. There was primary burial, where the entire body was placed in the jar in a seated fetal position, a posture reminiscent of an infant in the womb. This was likely an expression of a belief in rebirth, a return to the origin to prepare for a new life. But more common was secondary burial. After an initial period of burial, the Sa Huynh would perform a ritual exhumation, collect the bones, clean them, and arrange them in an orderly fashion within the jar before the final permanent burial. This act shows a deep care and a complex ritual for the deceased. The burial of children was even more special. Infants were often interred in smaller pottery vessels as a final protective embrace of motherly love. The entire burial ground, often located right within the living area, transformed the land of the Sa Huynh into an intertwined space of the living and the dead. Chapter 3. Grave Goods, a passport to the afterlife. The items placed inside the jars were the passports and provisions for the journey of the dead. The changes in these grave goods through the historical phases paint a vivid picture of Sa Huynh society. Early phase. Grave goods were mainly stone tools and pottery, indicating a relatively self-sufficient society. Middle phase. This was an explosion of artifacts. Iron objects appeared in massive quantities and became common. Archaeologists have found countless axes, hoes, knives, and especially weapons like longswords, spears, and lances made of iron. This proves the Sa Huynh people were not just farmers. They were also fierce warriors. At the same time, wealth from maritime trade was expressed through thousands of precious ornaments. Bead necklaces made from agate and carnelian originating from India, colorful glass bracelets, and nephrite jade show that they were a key link in a prehistoric trade network on the South China Sea. Late phase. The quantity of iron tools and imported items decreased somewhat, suggesting that their trade network may have faced difficulties or that there were changes in the social structure. Preparing these provisions so carefully demonstrates a powerful belief in the afterlife, a world where people still needed to work, fight, and adorn themselves. Chapter 4. The immortal symbol of power, the two-headed animal earring. Among the countless ornaments, one type has become an icon, a unique signature of the Sa Huynh culture, the two-headed animal earring. These earrings were often made from nephrite jade or glass, exquisitely crafted into the shape of two symmetrical animal heads. This is a masterpiece of prehistoric jewelry making. But what is this animal, and what does it mean? To this day, it remains a great mystery. One theory suggests it is the image of the Naga, a serpent deity from Indian mythology, symbolizing water and protection. Another theory proposes it was an indigenous spirit animal, a symbol of power reserved for the ruling class of chieftains or shamans. Even more interestingly, these two-headed animal earrings are not only found in Vietnam. They also appear in archaeological sites of the same period in Taiwan, the Philippines, and Borneo. This discovery has revealed the existence of a vast prehistoric maritime trade network, which archaeologists call the Jade Sea Road. The Sa Huynh people were not an isolated tribe. They were skilled seafarers, a part of a larger, connected world. Conclusion: the farewell of a maritime culture. So, what picture can we paint of the Sa Huynh people? Through their historical phases, they developed from a small coastal community into a complex society, mastered iron technology, and became seafarers who connected Southeast Asia with the outside world. Their spiritual world was profound, with a strong belief in the cycle of life and death, and a meticulous care for their deceased. Their disappearance around the 2nd century CE was likely not a mysterious vanishment. It coincides remarkably with the first appearance of records about the Kingdom of Champa in Chinese annals. It is highly probable that the Sa Huynh people did not disappear. They were one of the key groups who participated in the process of forming and creating the later state of Champa. They assimilated, transformed, and left their legacy in a new chapter of history. The ceramic jars resting silently under the soil of central Vietnam are not just tombs. They are the whispers of ancestors, the heritage of a unique maritime culture that helped shape the diverse and brilliant history of Vietnam.